Dear passengers, travel unlimited in Metro at ₹99 only. Buy the super saver holiday unlimited.
Hi, good morning. Online people, please confirm my voice is audible.
Yes,
Sir. Okay. So hope you are able to see my screen also.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So as part of yesterday's session, we discussed about partitioning and we discussed about clustering. And in today's session, we'll see the practicals on same thing. Okay. So as part of this practical session, so today we are going to use one file. This is the file we are going to use. Just 1 second, file is opening. Yeah. So this is the file we are going to use. If you observe here in this file, we are having the EAD column, first name column, last name column, phone number, and we are having the hire date column, job ID column, salary column, department ID column, and country column. In next 2 minutes, I will send this file to your Telegram group only. So from there, you can able to download this file to your local system. On top of this file only, we are going to discuss about all our examples as part of our current session. So this is the file we are going to use. In this file, we are having all these columns: employee ID, first name, last name, phone number, hire date column, and we are having the job ID column, salary column, department ID column, and country column. Now, out of all these columns, our requirement is I want to apply the partitioning on top of the hire date column, because if you observe here, in the hire date column, if you observe, we are having the only specific hire dates. On a particular hire date, multiple people are joined. For example, if you take on April 4, 2023, some people are joined, and May 5th, 2023, some people are joined, and June 1st, 2023, some people are joined, and July 1st, 2023, some more people are joined. So like this is the way we are having the data in this file. Now, as part of loading this data, I want to apply the partitioning on top of the hire date column, and I want to apply the partitioning on top, I want to apply the clustering on top of the country column. If you are going to apply the partitioning, what will happen? Your data will be partitioned in the classes. It is going to contain all the similar values into your individual partitions. What about the clustering? If you are going to apply the clustering, what will happen? It is going to perform the sorting operation in our internal storage only. So this is the way our clustering and partitioning is going to work. Now, on top of this file, we are trying to understand how we can able to apply the partitioning and how we can able to apply the clustering. Okay, just 1 minute. I will send this file to you in the Telegram group. Just 2 seconds, Andy. So my system is running very slow today for some reason. Yeah, I sent the file in the Telegram group. So please download this file into your local system. So I sent the file in the Telegram group. File name is employee_1.csv. So please download this file into your local systems. Okay. So now my requirement is I want to create the table from console by applying partitioning and clustering. So this is my requirement. What is the requirement here? I want to create the table from the console. Okay, from the BigQuery console, I want to create the table by applying the both partitioning and clustering. So already we discussed about how we can able to create the tables from the console. So we need to go to the BigQuery console. So how to go to BigQuery console? Just you have to give it as a console.cloud.google.com. So with that, you can go to the BigQuery console. So please download the file and please open the BigQuery console. Okay, so next step is we need to create the table from here. So if you want to create the table from the console, what we need to do? Within the project, within the schema, we need to click on the 3 dots. So whatever the schema you are already having, on top of the schema, click on the 3 dots. And after that, we need to click on the create table. Click on that create table. Okay, now already we are having the file. By using that file, I want to create the table, and for that table I want to give all my partitioning and clustering. And now what we'll do here is I want to move that file into my GCS bucket. Now you try to give the answer how we can able to move the file to the GCS bucket.
We need to create the GCS bucket.
Yeah, so please create the bucket and copy the file to your GCS bucket. So what is the command to copy the file to GCS bucket? GS util
Copy.
You need to give your local path, then you need to provide your GCS path.
bucket.
Okay. So please, by using this command, copy the file from the from the local to your GCS bucket. What's the one more option instead of using the command? From console also, you can do this operation by depending on your convenience and it. If you want, directly go to the console. From the console also, you can able to upload the file from the local system to your GCS. Otherwise, if you want to run the commands, you need to open the Cloud SDK. In the Cloud SDK, run the command called as gsutil space copy space local path space. You need to provide your GCS bucket path. So whatever the file I sent in the Telegram group, so please download that file. After downloading that file, please upload that file into the GCS bucket, either by using Cloud SDK or directly by using the console. You can upload that file into the GCS bucket. After that, open BigQuery console. And within the BigQuery, I want to create the table from console by applying the partitioning and clustering. Okay, here we need to go to click on the database on 3 buttons. Then we need to click on the create table. Once we click on the create table, here we can able to see the option what type of the table you want to create. Here we need to select the table. So create the table from. So from where you want to create the table? I want to create the table from the Google Cloud Storage. So for that reason, I am selecting the option as a Google Cloud Storage. Once you copied the file to the GCS bucket, then here in the BigQuery console, while creation of the table, I am given the option called as a Google Cloud Storage. After that, we need to click on the browse. Indirectly, we need to give the path of the file from the GCS bucket. Click on browse. Go to your bucket. So in my bucket, I am having the file called as a employee_1.csv. Select the file. Go to your bucket, select the file, click on select. Okay. So after that, we need to give the destination, we need to give the project name, we need to give the dataset name. After that, we need to provide the table name. Here I'm given the table name as employee partition console. You can give any name by depending on your convenience, by depending on your understanding, you can give any name. Here, just by my understanding, I'm giving it as a employee table, and I'm giving employee table. On top of this table, we're applying the partition, so I'm giving it as a partition. We are doing this operation from the console. Just for my understanding, I'm giving it as a employee partition console. If you want, you can give any kind of name by depending on your convenience. Okay. And after that, if you observe here, we are having the table type only. So what are the different types of the tables we are having?
4 types.
We are having managed tables and we are having the external table. So we are having the 2 types of the table. By depending on our requirement, we need to choose the type of the table. But if you observe here, when we are given the native table, then we are seeing the partitioning and clustering option. When we are given the type of the table as a native table, then we are seeing the option as a partitioning and clustering. Okay. But if you are going to select the external table, are we seeing any such kind of options?
No, sir.
When we are selecting the external table, are we going to see the partitioning and clustering? No. What's the reason? Any guesses? Because all this partitioning or clustering are happening on what? On the classes, where we are having the classes in the BigQuery storage only. Earlier we discussed, whenever we are going to create the external tables, where data is going to store, data will be storing in the cloud BigQuery storage, or it is going to store in the outside.
Outside.
External table data is storing in the outside and it's not storing in the classes. If data is not storing in the classes, then partitioning, clustering, all those things are going to applicable. Obviously, no. Only for the native tables only we can able to apply the partitioning or clustering, all these kind of things. And that's the reason when we are selecting the external table, here we are not seeing any such kind of information on the console. That's the reason here, as part of our example, I am selecting it as a native table. Now tell me, when we are giving it as a native table, where this data is going to store?
BigQuery
This data is going to store in the BigQuery storage. In the BigQuery storage, where it is going to store, this data is storing into the classes. Within the classes, all your data will store. On top of that data, it is going to apply the partitioning and clustering, all such kind of things. Okay. Just we are selecting the type of the table as a native table. After that, I want to detect the schema automatically. So I'm giving it as a auto detect. I want to detect the schema automatically from the file. So we are giving it as a auto detect. Okay. So next one, we need to specify the partition and cluster settings. So first one, we are given the partitioning and then we are given the clustering. So if you want to give the partitioning, click on this drop down. Here, if you observe here, first option, we are having it as a no partitioning. If you are going to select the no partitioning, it is not going to apply any kind of partitioning. Second one, if you see here, we are having the one more type called as a partition by ingestion type. So if you see, we can able to see option called as a partition by ingestion type. So we are having the option called as a partition by ingestion time. And now see here, as per our requirement, what I told you, I want to give the partition on the hire date column. But here, how I can able to select the hire date column? Do we have that kind of functionality here? In the partitioning, they are given the only two options, and one is the no partitioning, and another one is the partition by ingestion time. Indirectly, from the console, if you are going to create the partition, we cannot able to give our own partition. You have to give the partition based on the ingestion time. But try to give the answer. What is the meaning of ingestion time here?
While loading the data.
Ingestion time is nothing but at what time you are loading the data. So ingestion time is nothing but at what time you are loading the data. So what we are doing now, we are loading this data on 2023 August 19 at 8:53. We are going to load the data. Now internally, what will happen here is, by using this ingestion time, it is going to create the partition. Whenever you are creating the table by using the partition from the console, you cannot able to give your own columns. And here we can able to give the only one option. What is the option here? We have to give it as a partition by ingestion time. Indirectly, by using this ingestion time, it is going to create the partition. So for example, here I am selecting the option as a partition by ingestion time.
Yes, sir, partition by injection time means every time it will be creating new partition, right?
Exactly. So for example, see here, today I'm loading the data into this table. What will happen? With today's date, it will create a partition. Okay. Tomorrow, if I'm loading the data again on the same table, what will happen? Again, with tomorrow's date, it will create the one more partition. And day after tomorrow, again, if I'm going to load the data, then what will happen? With day after tomorrow's date, it will create the one more partition, which is nothing but when we are going to select the option as a ingestion time, whenever you are performing the loading operation, based on that date, it is going to take the partition. In that partition, it is going to store all the data. And now, for example, within the day, you are loading data for every hour. So for example, I am loading the data in the same day. In the same day, for every hour, we are going to load the data. At the hour level also, you can able to create the partition if you want. And if you observe in the console, here we can able to see the option. You want to create the partition at the day level, or you want to create the partition at the hour level, or you want to create the partition at the month level, or you want to create the partition at the year level. Those kind of features we are having. By depending on your convenience, you can give it as a day or hour or month or year. So indirectly, whenever we are going to give the ingestion time, what is happening here? Whenever we are going to load the data, based on that time, it is going to create the partition. If you want, we can able to create the partition at the day level or hour level or month level or year level. But if we see here, what is my requirement actually? I want to create the partition on the hire date
Hire
column.
date,
But you
only.
tell me from the console can be able to give the hire date column?
No, sir.
Because from the console you can able to give
There
the
is no
only one
option.
option called as a ingestion time. But if you want to achieve the requirement, instead of using the console, we are going to use the commands, and that topic we are going to cover within next 5 minutes or 10 minutes. First, we'll try to understand from the console how we can able to perform this operation. From the console, we are given the option called as a ingestion time. Okay. After that, if you see one more option we are having, required where clause to query the data. Now you tell me why we are applying the partitions.
Fetch the data fastly.
Why we are applying the partition is nothing but
To increase the
fetch
performance.
the data fastly, or we can able to say to increase performance.
Also cost efficient.
To fetch the data fastly and to increase the performance only, we are going to apply our partitions. And now, for example, I am going to write the query select star from the table. Just see here, for example, we are applying the partition on top of the hire date column. Now, after applying the partition on top of the hire date column, I am given the query, for example, select star from the table. Now, you tell me if I am going to run this query after applying the partition, can we able to get the good performance?
No.
No, sir.
Obviously, we cannot able to get the good performance, because once you are going to apply the partition, after that, in this query, we need to apply the condition on top of your partition column. Then only what will happen, you can able to see the best performance as part of running our SQL statement. For that reason, it is asking one question like this, Andy, whether you want to apply the where clause on top of the partition or not. So what it is asking here, after giving the partition information, it is asking require where clause to query the data. Now, for example, if I am going to enable this option, just observe here, Andy. If I am going to enable this option, what will happen here is, if I am going to run the query like this without using the where clause. For example, after applying the partition, if I am going to enable this option, whatever the option we are having in the console, require the where clause to query the data. If I am going to enable this option, what is going to happen? Whenever you are going to run the queries, compulsory we have to pass the
where clause.
Compulsory we need to pass the where clause. If you are not going to give the where clause, what will happen here is, this query will throw the syntax error. This query will throw syntax error. Okay, because here we are enabling the option called as nothing but I want to apply the where clause on top of the partition column. You are enabling this option. Once you are going to enable this option, what will happen? As part of running the query, your BigQuery is going to cross verify in your query you are applying the where clause on top of the partition column or not. If you are not going to apply the where clause, automatically what will happen? That query will throw the syntax error. Now, for example, from the console, I am not selecting this option. Then what will happen? From the console, I am not selecting this option. Then if I'm going to execute this query will not throw any kind of syntax error, because in the console, we are not selecting this option. But you tell me, what is the best practice we need to follow in the real time when we are applying the partitions? We need to enable this option, because we are applying the partition for the purpose of improving the performance. If you want to improve the performance in the query, obviously we need to give the where clause to ensure that better to enable this option as part of doing this operation. So here I'm giving it as a enabling option for require the where clause. After that, I want to create the partition type as a by day. So I'm giving the option as a by day. I want to create the partition for every day based on the ingestion time. For that reason, here I'm given the option called as a by day. After that, I want to apply the clustering order. So what we discussed earlier, I want to apply the clustering order on country column. Now you tell me, can we able to apply the partition on the multiple columns?
No.
Yesterday what we discussed, we are having the limitation. You can apply the partition for only one column. But what about clustering?
We can do
Coming to clustering, you can able to apply the clustering on the multiple columns by depending on your requirement only. But for now, just I'm giving the only one column here. We are not doing anything here. I send the file to your Telegram group. Download that file, upload that file into the GCS bucket. On top of that file, I want to create the table by using the partition. I want to perform this operation from the console. But what is the limitation from the console? from the console, we cannot able to give the partition on the required column. You can able to give the partition only on top of your ingestion time column only. For now, we'll go with the ingestion time. In next 5 or 10 minutes, I am going to cover how we can able to apply the partition on the specific column by depending on our requirement. Here we are given the partition, we are given the clustering column, and also if you see on what type of tables we can able to apply the partition, only on the native table or internal table or manager table. If you are going to give the external table, then we cannot able to apply the partition. Only these are the few topics as we discussed as part of our today's session. Okay. Now, after giving all this information, just click on create table.
Sir, small doubt, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, actually, like in Hive, you know, right? In partitioning, they will divide into folders. Okay. So here also it is like folders.
No, internally, all your data is storing in the Colossus, and you cannot able to see that folder information or anything. Okay, in the Hive, what will happen? You can able to see the data in the file system in the HDFS. We can able to see data in the folder format and other format. But coming to BigQuery, can we able to see data anywhere internally? No, right? Internally, we don't know how it is storing the data, but internally might be they're storing in the file format or any other format. But we don't know internally how it is storing the data as part of applying the partitions.
So actually doubt came means see partitioning like dividing the data depends on the column which we selected only and the clustering is also same they are doing just only sorting data and storing into the Colossus.
Yes. See, coming to partitioning, it is going to store the data physically, but coming to clustering, what is happening within the Colossus, it is performing the sorting operation.
Okay, logically it is doing that one. Okay,
yes. Okay. Yeah, now see here, we created the table called as a employee partition console table. If you click on this table, if you go to the, here you can able to see the schema, you know all these things already. Yeah, if you want to see here, click on the table, just to go to the details window. In the details window, if you see on top of the table type, what is the type of the table it is showing? This is the partition table. Indirectly, if you want to understand on top of this table, do we have the partition or not? Here, just we need to click on the table. Here, we need to go to the details option. In the details option, you can able to see table type, and here, this is the partition table. For that reason, here you can able to see the information called as a partition type. Okay. And what is the type of the partition we given? We given the day partition or hour partition or monthly partition. We given the day partition. For that reason, you can able to see the partition by day. Now see here. We are applying the partition on which field or which column? Are we giving any column in the console? No, right? We are giving it as a ingestion time and indirectly, internally it will take one column is nothing but underscore partition time column. This column we are not having in the file, but internally it will create one column called as a partition time column. In this partition time column, it is going to take the ingestion time value. At what time you loaded the data, that value it is going to take, and that value is storing on top of your partition time. Okay, here we select the option called as nothing but ingestion time only. For that reason, it is creating one default column called as a partition time. For example, if I am going to create the partition on top of the high rate column, then what we can able to see here? Here we can able to see the high rate, but from the console, you cannot able to give any specific column. We given the option called as a partition on ingestion time. That's the reason it is creating one other column called as a partition time column internally. That column is displaying it as a partition on field. In the same way, if you see clustered by, on which column we applied the clustered by? On the country column. That's the reason if you want to see all this kind of information, partition information, cluster information, just we need to click on the table. After that, click on the details. Within the details, you can able to see whether this table is partitioned or not, on which column we applied the partition, and on which column we applied the cluster. All this kind of information we can able to see by click on the tables by going to the details tab. Okay. Now, for example, my requirement is I don't want to see this information in this way. I want to frame the query for this. By using the query, I want to check on which columns we are having partition and clustering. So in the real time, sometimes we are not going to get the access for our console, and in the situation, you need to prepare the queries. By using the queries only, you need to see all this kind of information. So when are having this kind of requirement, by using the query, I want to find out which columns are having the partition, which columns are having the clustering. To see this information, here we are having a table called as our database name dot information underscore schema dot partitions. So this is the way we are having one internal table and you need to give your database name dot, then we need to provide the information underscore schema dot, then we need to give the partitions information. Now on top of this table, you can able to see all your partition information. Just I will show you what is the query we need to prepare here. So see here, this is the query we have to write. So what is the table we are using here? My database name is nothing but sample QT. In my BigQuery console, what is my database name? Sample QT. In your console, whatever the database name you are having, you have to give the database name dot. Then we need to give the information underscore schema dot. Then we need to specify the partitions and now here we can able to see all the tables on whatever the table we applied the partition. We can able to see all such kind of tables information by using this table. And on top of this table, what I'm doing here, I'm giving the select statement. In the select statement, I'm giving it as I want to fetch the table name, I want to get the partition ID, and I want to understand in that partition total how many rows are stored. And yesterday we discussed whenever we are going to apply the partition, what will happen? In that partition, it is storing some kind of data. Whatever the similar values we are having, all the similar values are storing into a particular partition. If you want to understand how many rows are storing into the particular partition, that information also we can able to fetch. But if you want to see that information, here we need to give the column called as a total underscore rows and this is the table. From this table, we are going to fetch the table name. We are going to fetch the partition ID. You are going to fetch the total rows. This is the way simply we can able to frame the query. Now you try to give the answer. Once I'm going to run this query, what is the output we can able to expect? We'll run the query, but you try to give the answer. What would be the output we are going to get? What is the table name we given? I given the table name as a employee partition console. This is the table name. And what about the partition ID? Any guess what value it will take?
Ingestion time.
Ingestion time, which is nothing but we given the day or hour. We given the day for that reason. It will take the date and day. So it will take the date. Partition ID is nothing but 2023-08-19 because we given the ingestion time. But after that, we select the option called as a day, which is nothing but it is creating the partition at the day level. What is the today's date? 2023-08-19. By using this ID, it is going to create the partition. After that, it is going to take total rows and I think in this file we are having around 105 records. It is going to display in this partition. You are having total 105 records. This is the kind of information we can able to see once we are going to run this query. But you tell me, if I am going to run this query, it will display only one table or it will display all the tables?
All the
tables on whatever the table we are having the partition. It will display all the tables only. But our requirement is I want to get data for all the tables or I want to get data for only one table. I want to get data for only one table. For that reason, what we can do here? Just add the one more condition. I'm giving it as a table underscore name is equal to. We need to pass the table name.
Employee partition control console.
Yeah, spelling is correct. So this is the way simply we can able to frame the query. Now run this query.
Console, sir. Console. Yeah, that's fine. Console.
Yes, my mistake. Yeah. Just give the table name properly and after that, just run this query here. Now see what is happening. Here you can able to see the table name. What is the partition ID? So we loaded the data today. For that reason, it is taken the partition ID as a today's partition. In this partition, how many records is stored? It's stored around 107 records only. So this is the way you can able to understand how many partitions are created. In every partition, how many records are stored. All this kind of information we can able to see by using the table called as nothing but schema.partitions table. On top of this table, it is storing all the partitions information. It is storing all the rows information also. This is the way you can able to understand in each and every partition how many records are storing. To see the partitions information and to understand how many records are loaded in each partition, then simply we can able to use this query. So after the class, I will send all this information to you. So with that, you can able to perform the practice after the class also if you want. But this is the query we are going to use if you want to see the partitions by depending on our requirement. Any questions up to here?
So it is the meta table sample.qt information on the system.
This is the database only. So in this database, it is creating a system table called as information underscore schema. In this schema, it is going to create the table called as a partition table. In this partition table, it is storing all the partitions information.
Could you see this in the console? This table, partition table.
Yeah, that one I'm showing here, right? So from the console only, we are seeing.
From left side, sir. From left side. From
Sorry?
sample qt, we could see that template or
No, this side we cannot able to see because this is the kind of a system table, right? For that reason, in the left side console, you cannot able to see the system tables information.
So this partition will help only the ingestion time only, right? Because see, for example, I can say today I have ingested some data, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, continuously I have ingested. Okay. So after sometimes I want to fetch data for particular order date only. So it won't affect that much cost efficient, right? Here, because we only ingested only on date time.
Yeah, you are instead on the date time. For example, I'm given the cell stuff on the table without applying any partition column. Then what will happen? It will go to the one ODate column value data, or it will check the data for all the dates.
All the date, but
okay. But if I'm going to apply the condition as a where partition date is equal to some value we are giving, then what will happen? It will scan entire table. It will go to the specific partition.
Entire table, sir. Because
no, it won't go to the entire table only. So already yesterday we discussed about this topic by spending 1.5 hours of time. Don't ask the same question again. Already yesterday we discussed whenever we are going to apply the condition on top of the partition column, what will happen? Your entire data will be fetching from the same that partition only. It is not going to perform the complete table scan.
So, sir, 1 second. See, this partition, not I'm saying the partition date. Okay. If I'm saying the order date, in the table, I'm having the order date. Okay.
Okay.
But this partitioning is happening only the insertion time. Because see, today is one day and tomorrow is a different dates, right?
Yes.
But the order date is different, right?
Yeah, because see, in the where clause, if you are not going to apply the partition column, if you are going to apply the other column, then what will happen? It is going to do the complete table scan.
Complete table. Yes, yes. So instead of that, we need to use this one as well. Partition data as well.
Yeah, that's the thing on this. Actually, as per our example, I want to apply the partition on top of the higher date column. But what I'm telling, we are trying to do this operation from the console. But from the console, we cannot able to give our required column by depending on our requirement. That is the limitation we are having from the console. From the console, what we can do, you can able to give the partition only on the ingestion time. To explain that, I'm telling about all these kind of options. In the next example, we are going to discuss about how we can able to give the partition column by depending on our requirement, either ODate column or higher date column, whatever the column you want to give, we can give that information in the other approach. But first approach we are discussing from the console, because as part of interviews they will ask the question how you will apply the partition on the particular column. If you are going to give the answer as by using the console, is the correct answer, wrong answer?
Wrong answer.
That's a blindly wrong answer. To understand that, first I'm giving the example on top of the console. From the console, you can able to create the partition only on the ingestion time. But if you want to give the partition on any specific column, then we cannot able to use the console. Then we have to write the query manually. By using the query only, we can able to perform that operation.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now see here, as we discussed, so from the console, we cannot able to give the partition on top of a specific column. Now my requirement is, I want to give a partition on the specific column. And then what we can do here, we need to write the query completely. So to write the query,
if you are running the same query, it is not working. Is any changes setup is required for this, sir?
Throwing
in the console?
What's the error?
In the console, it is not running, sir.
What is the error you're getting?
Unexpected string literal like that.
Now, can you please give this tilde symbol?
Yeah, what is that symbol, sir? Actually,
this
I'm
is
quotations.
No, beside the one or on top of the tab, you can able to see one button as a tilde symbol. Please give the symbol.
Okay.
Single quote.
It's not a single quote only. It's
It
not
is
a
not a
single
single
quote.
Okay.
Beside the one or on top of the tab button, you can able to see one button.
Okay.
That just give it, and then it will take this value like this. And after that, please run that query.
Yeah, now it's working. So is that the one every time you need to use as a for the database, or if you are giving some
actually, no, actually, if you are going to work in the real time, so whenever we are given the database name dot schema name dot table name, then we are going to give that entire information within the tilde symbol like this. Is it working now?
It's working, sir.
Okay, cool.
Sir,
Yeah, please.
query can't do that group function on that table in query.
Now, can you repeat the question? I didn't get that.
Could he use group function in that query? On that we can't use square clause, right? We need type clause only.
In which query? Which group function you want to apply?
Hence, any group by function, if you are using like some function by using some function.
No, we can use the group by function. Why we cannot able to apply the group by function?
No, only it will showing only query clause only, not any other option. That is why. At the time of creation that table, we click on that query clause, right?
At the time of creation of the table.
By console.
No, one question. Why suddenly group by is came into the picture?
Is every time we need to use square clause, that is after that only it will show the performance, right, sir?
No, I'm not at all getting your question. Andy. Can you please repeat your
Sir,
question one time?
Could you ask in Hindi, sir?
No.
Hello.
As I told you, I'm not that much good in Hindi, Andy. So please ask in English if possible.
So if you use a group clause, so you can use having to filter the records, right?
Yes, that is it.
Then
no, but why we need to go for group and having? Are we discussing any that requirement here? That's my question. So don't confuse yourself, Andy. So if you want to experiment all these things, you can experiment it later. So in this example, are we discussing any group and having?
No, sir.
Then why suddenly these two are came into the picture?
Because in that while creating that table, it will be show a box only for query clause, nothing anything else.
While creation of the table, it is showing where clause only. But tell me here. So what we are doing here, so as per the requirement in the console, they are giving the where clause, because it is nothing but whenever we are going to apply the kind of a queries by using the partition, in the where clause compulsory we have to apply the partition. Okay, in the console, they are not giving any option called as a group by. But coming to group by, if you want to do what we can do here, we can able to apply the group by on top of the partition by depending on your requirement. But in the console, they haven't given any such kind of option. Tell me, every time are we going to apply the group by? No, right? No. By depending on the requirement only, we are going to apply the group by. But coming to where clause, they are saying that compulsory you have to apply the where clause on top of the partition column to improve the performance. Is it clear or still any confusion?
No, please.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I have one question. So tomorrow, if I'm loading the one more file with employee 02, so in the partition ID, it will come as a 2023 0.
No, it will give the two partition IDs, because tomorrow if you are going to load the data, what will happen? You are having the yesterday's partition and you are having the today's partition. For that reason, it will display the two partition IDs. In the first partition, it is having the 107 records. In the tomorrow's partition, it will display how many number of records you are having. Like that, everyday partition data will be adding on top of your partitions table.
So this is just like a metadata as a data of data. That
yes,
one
correct.
information.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yes. Because this is the kind of a system table. In the system table, what will happen? It will store all the metadata information. In this table, what is the metadata it is storing? It is storing the metadata for your partition table. That's the reason it is storing the partition ID. In every partition, how many records we are having, that information is storing here.
Okay. So in the table, this table name is also coming as a metadata?
Yeah, this is also metadata. So because this partition ID is present where? This partition ID present for this table only, right? That's the reason this is storing all the complete metadata of the table. Not only these three columns, and if you are given the star, you can able to see complete metadata of the table. Okay, but just for understanding, I given the only three columns here. But if you are going to give the star, you can able to see the other columns information also on top of this system table. Okay, yeah. So just will continue only. So now my requirement is I want to give the partition on top of my required column as part of my requirement. So to do that operation, what we can do here is you can able to frame the query like this, Andy. So if you remember earlier we discussed about how we can able to perform the load operation by using the load command. Just observe here. So this is the command we are going to use. So what is the command we are using? Load command. Load data into in which table you want to load the data, that information we need to specify. I am giving it as a database name dot table name. I am giving my table name as employee P command. Why I am giving like that? This is the employee partition table, but this operation I am doing by using the command. And if you want, you can give any other names also. Only for my understanding, I am giving it as a table name P for partition table, but how we are given the partition here? With the help of the command, I'm given the partition. For that reason, I'm giving it as a employee P command. Here, what is the command we are using? I want to load the data. Earlier, what we did from the console, we given the GCS table path. With that, data is loading automatically. But here, by using the command, I want to do this operation. That's the reason. Here, what is the command we are going to use? We are using the command called as a load data. And by using the load data, into what table you want to load the data? Into the employee P command table, I want to load the data. Now, while performing this loading operation, I want to apply the partition on which column? I want to apply the partition on the higher date column only, because here you are giving the command manually. That's the reason here you can able to apply the partition on your own column by depending on your requirement. But in the console, we cannot able to do that operation. But if you are going to give the command yourself, then what we can do? We can able to apply the partition by depending on our requirement. Here, what is the partition column I'm giving? I'm giving it as a higher underscore date. After that, here I'm given the cluster by which column? Country. Indirectly on top of this table, what I'm doing? On the same table, we are applying the partitioning. At the same time, on the same table, we are applying the clustering also, Nandi. So both the things we are giving here, partitioning and clustering. And if you see the next one, by giving the keyword called as a options keyword, what I'm doing here, I'm enabling the filter called as a require partition filter. Any guesses what it is indirectly?
Where class?
In the console, we saw the where clause, right? Same option we can able to specify with the help of the command also. What we can do here, we need to give it as a require underscore partition underscore filter is equal to true, which means whenever we are giving the select statement on top of this table, compulsory we have to give the where clause by using the higher date column. Otherwise, what will happen? That query will throw the error. For example, you don't want to disable this option. What we can do? Just give it as a false. If you are giving this option as a false, then automatically that option will be disabled. Now, I want to load the data. From where you want to load the data? From the GCS bucket, from the CSV file, I want to load the data. That's the reason. Here we are going to specify the files information. To specify the files information, we are giving the keywords called as a from files. By using this option, we can able to provide the files information. But tell me, in the console, how many different types of the files we are seeing? CSV, Parquet, Avro, ORC, like that. We are having the different types of the files, and for that reason, in the command also we need to specify what format of file you are using in your example. So here, what type of file we are using as part of our example? We are using CSV file. I am given the CSV. After that, we need to specify the path of the GCS path. Here I am given the URIs is equal to, we need to provide the path of the file. Now, for example, your requirement is from your bucket, you want to load the data for the two files, and then what we can do here is just we can give the comma. Actual file name is _1. Just give the comma, and here we can give the one more file. Okay, like this, you can able to give any number of files, and which is nothing but by using the single command. What we can do here, you can able to load the data from the two different files. For example, in your bucket, we are having the 10 files, and you want to load data for all the 10 files. What we can do here, we can able to pass all the file names within the square brackets by using the comma delimiter. With that, you can able to load the data for multiple files by depending on your requirement. But here my requirement is I want to load data for only one file. So this is the way what we can do here from the console. Whatever the way we are doing the loading operation, same operation we can able to perform with the help of the command called as a load data. So we are given the load data into the table name. After that, we are given the partition by and cluster by. After that, we are given the file path. By using all these things, what we can do here, we can able to perform the loading operation on top of your table. Okay, just for your convenience, what I'm doing here is I am copying this query into the Telegram group. So please go to the Telegram group, and from there you can able to copy. After the class, if you want, you can type manually and you can able to do the practice. Just to avoid the spelling mistakes and other things, I copied this command into the Telegram group. So from there you can able to take this command. So just I'm taking this.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yeah, please.
So what about the table schema, sir?
Now see, coming to here, if you are given the load data, if you are not given the table schema, what will happen? By default, it will take the schema. If you want, we can define the schema also. That is the next step we are going to perform. And this is the one more approach how we can able to load the data into your table by giving the partition and cluster by. Here we are not given the schema. If you are not given the schema, what will happen? By default, it is going to auto detect the schema. With that, it is going to create the structure of the table automatically as part of doing the loading operation.
Okay.
Okay. Now just I'm going to run this query in my console. So please try to understand all this information because in the afternoon class, again, we are going to perform the real-time example by using all these things only. If you have any kind of questions related to this topic, please ask me. With that afternoon class, you can able to understand very easily. If you are having the confusions or if you are having the questions on this class, automatically you cannot able to understand the afternoon class.
So this option is only for GCS bucket only, right? Which we are writing the query.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Now see here, just I'm going to run this query. Okay, so your table has been created. Now, if you want to see the whether this table is clustered or not, what we can do? One option, click on the table, go to the details. Otherwise, I will do that operation. Click on the table. Go to details. So see here, have we given any schema as part of running the command? No, automatically it is creating the schema by using the auto detect option. It is creating the schema of your table. And if you go to the details, if you see, this table type is partition, but on which column it is applied the partition? On top of the higher date column, because here we given the partition higher date column as a partition column. That's the reason it is taken the partition column as a higher date column. And what about the cluster by? It is taking the column name as a country. Whatever the information we given as part of the load command, with that it is displaying all the table details in the tab called as a details tab. Now just I will try to run the query on top of this table. Select.
Getting like access denied, BigQuery permissions denied, like that I'm looking.
So might be you are giving some wrong file or you are giving some wrong information.
Okay.
Okay. Now see, if I'm going to run this query, tell me this query will execute or it will give any error.
Error, sir.
So this query will give the error. We'll check that once. See what's happening. Cannot query over the table without a filter column on the higher date. What's the reason why we are getting this error? As part of creation of the table, we given the partition, we enable the option for compulsory. You have to apply the where condition. That's the reason this query is given the error. Now, if you want to overcome this error, what we can do here? Simply we need to apply the where clause. On which column we need to apply the where clause? On top of the higher date column, compulsory you have to apply the where clause. Then only this query will execute. Then only you can able to get the proper performance or proper optimizations because of applying our partitioning concept. Okay. Now one more question. On top of this table, I want to see all the partitions information. How we can able to see that information? On top of this table, I want to see all the partitions information. How we can able to see that information? Above we discussed, right? So we are having the table called as a schema table, information schema, partitions table. Now in this query, just what's the modification we need to perform?
Table name.
So we need to give the our table, current table. So this is my current table, employee P command. This is my current table. Now I am going to run this query now. See what is happening. Now you can able to see the multiple partition IDs, but tell me why it is showing the multiple partition IDs. In the previous example, we are seeing the only one partition ID, but in this example, it is displaying the multiple partition IDs. What is the reason?
Because
earlier we given the ingestion time only. Ingestion time is nothing but on whatever the date you loaded the data, for that entire date it is taken the only one partition. But in this example, we applied the partition on which column? On the higher date column. In the higher date column, whatever the similar values we are having, for all the similar values, it will take it as a one partition. Indirectly in our file, how many similar values we are having? If you open the file and if you see the data, you can able to see the 4 different higher dates. And for that reason, for every higher date, it is going to create the partition like this. And in every partition, you can able to see how many records are storing. First partition, 30 records. Second partition, 19 records. Third partition, 28 records. And fourth partition, 30 records. This is the way when we are applying creating the partition on top of the higher date column. It is creating the multiple partitions in the classes. In every partition, it is going to load the related records. For that reason, in this schema table, we can able to see all the partition dates at the same time. We can able to see the respective number of rows. This is the query we can able to use at any point of time. You want to see the partitions information. You can able to run the query like this. By using that query, you can able to see the content like this. Okay. Any questions again up to here? Please ask me.
Yes, sir. Sir, if we see on the left side panel below the schema, when we when we perform the partition through console by using the partition time, the symbol has been changed, and when we run the command, it's similar to the table creation. Right.
Okay, I didn't notice Sunday, so just I will check it once and I will get back on that. Okay.
I mean, like if we for the partition tables, the first table looks like a partition. We can identify easily by looking at that symbol.
Correct, but I think for some reason it's not displaying for this one, so that I will check and let you know. But generally, if you want to see the whether the table is partitioned or not in the real time, we are going to use the queries like this, Sunday, because in the real time, generally you are not going to get the console access. But your question is valid. So in the console for this table, it is showing the different symbol. For this table, it is showing the different symbol. Might be this we ran from the console. For that reason, might be it is showing this symbol. But this one we ran from the command, right? So might be for that reason it's not displaying that kind of symbol. That's my assumption. I will check and get back to you on this. Is it fine?
Okay.
Okay.
For my console, which I created, I am seeing that split twice also.
Okay. By using the command also, you are seeing the same thing.
Yeah, console. When I created the console one,
yeah, here also same thing, Andy. So if you see the first table, this is the first table I created from the console.
Okay, console
for
one
that one, yeah, console one it is showing properly. But if you are running the command by using this kind of commands, it's not showing that symbol.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Yep.
So that where condition you explain something, sir. I missed that one.
See, whenever we are given the partition on top of the table, compulsory we have to apply the where clause. If we are not going to apply the where clause, that query will throw the syntax error, because as part of running the query here, what we given the condition as a require partition filter. Okay, because of this reason, whenever we are going to give the select statement, compulsory we have to apply the where clause on top of your partition column. Otherwise, that query will throw the error. Is it clear?
Yeah. So this query, like this load data, this command, like what we'll call syntaxes, how we'll get that, sir? From the Google, we need to take search or some.
No, here I'm sharing now. So you need to learn all these things, and by learning all these things, you can able to write all these things as part of real time also. Okay.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Yeah,
before running the load command, sorry, sir, I did not see few minutes. Did we create the table employee command?
No, and as part of this example, we have to create the table. So this table is created automatically because of using the auto detect option internally. Without creation of the table. So as part of this example, we haven't created any table. When we are given the load data into this table, automatically your schema is detected. With that, your table created, and with that, your data is loaded on top of this table.
Okay, sir. Sir, in BigQuery, do we have limitation on partition clustering? Maximum, I can create only these many partitions. That do we have any limitation, sir, in partition and clustering?
For the partition, you can able to apply the only one partition, and you can able to apply the partition on top of only one column. But for cluster, you can able to give the multiple columns. In the partition by, you can able to apply only on top of single column. But coming to cluster by, you can able to apply in the multiple columns by depending on your requirement.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Sir, here we can see the partitions, but why we cannot see clusters?
Yeah, we can able to see the cluster information also. But if you want to see the cluster information, here we are going to use the one more table called as a column Sunday. Just I will show you that. So if you want to see the cluster information, then we are going to use the table called as a columns table. Just I will run the query once.
Hello, sir.
Okay, one second, just I'm showing you how we can able to see the cluster information. Yeah, so see here, this is the query we can able to use. Actually, in this query, what is the table we are using? Earlier, we used the table called as a database name dot information underscore schema dot partitions. By using that partitions table, we can able to see the partition information. But if you want to see the cluster information on top of your table, then here we are going to use the one more table called as a columns table. So this is the table I'm giving, and here I'm applying the condition called as a where table name is equal to employee p command, and this is my table. Now, once we are going to run this command, what will happen here is on top of this table, whatever the columns we are having, we can able to see all the list of the columns here. Here you can able to see schema name, you can able to see the table name, and you can able to see all the column names. And if you scroll right side, and here you can able to see what is the position of each and every column. And here you can able to see the data types. Okay, now see here. Here we are having the information called as whether this column is partitioned or not. And here we can able to see if it is no, that column is not partitioned. But if it is showing it as a yes, what it means indirectly, that column is partitioned column. In the same way, here you can able to see the one more column called as a clustering ordinal position. And we scroll down here. So see, this is the column. So for this one, we are having the value 1. What it means indirectly? This is the country column. So for only country column, we given it as a cluster column. Now tell me in the cluster columns, what is the first column? Country. Now, for example, if you are given the 2 columns in the cluster, I am given the cluster on the country column and department ID column. Then what is the information we can able to see here? Any guesses?
1, 1, both.
1, 1 or 1, 2? Country column, you can able to see the 1, and for next column, you can able to see it as a 2, because yesterday we discussed, Randy, whenever we are applying the clustering, ordering is very, very important. If you are given the country, comma, for example, department ID, country is the first column in the clustering and department ID is the second column. To specify that information, here we are going to use the column called as a clustering ordinal position. Okay, whenever it is null, that is not a cluster column. If it is having values as 1 or 2 or 3, those columns only we can able to call it as a cluster column. This is the way simply you can able to understand what columns are having cluster and what columns are the partition columns by using the one more table called as a columns table. But see here, in this table, what we can able to see? You can able to see only which column is clustered or which column is partitioned. But if you want to see the partition level data, then we are going to use the table called as a partition table. But if you want to understand which column is partitioned, which column is clustered, if you want to see that kind of information, then we are going to use the one more table called as a database name dot schema name dot columns table. By using this table, you can able to see the partition information on which column we applied the partition, on which column we applied the cluster. All this information we can able to see. For example, if you don't want to get all these columns, what we can do? Instead of giving the star, just give it as a table underscore name, comma. I want to see the column name, comma, is underscore partitioning column, comma, clustering underscore ordinal position. So these are the columns. Just I am passing in the cell statement because I don't want to see all the information. I want to see information for only partitioning and clustering. That's the reason. Just I am giving only those columns in the cell statement. I will run this query. Now see here you can able to see only required columns only. Now on which column we applied the partition? Partition column S, which is nothing but higher grade column. And coming to cluster, we applied on which column? On top of the country column. Like this, by using this query, you can able to find out on which column we applied the partition, on which column we applied the clustering. So if you want to do the practice, just bring in that query also here only. Just try this if you want. So if you want to see the partition and clustering columns information from the console, we can able to see that information, but without using the console, by using the queries, if you want to see the information, what we can do here, this is the way we can able to frame the query. By using this query, you can able to find out what all are the columns we are having in the table, which columns are partitioned, which columns are clustered. All this information we can able to see by using the table called as a information schema dot columns. Okay. Now, for example, in every partition, how many records are loaded? If you want to see that information, then we are going to use the table called as a information underscore schema dot partitions table. By using this table, what we can do here, we can able to see the information for what all are the different partition IDs are created in every partition, what all are the how many number of rows are loaded. All this kind of information we can able to see by using the table called as a partitions table. If you want to see the columns information, we can able to use the table called as a information underscore schema dot columns table. Okay, any questions up to here?
Sir, after while creating a table or loading a table, I have not done the partition and clustering. After I am after on daily basis, I noticed that partition or clustering is needed because data retrieval is taking longer time. So after that, how can we create partition clustering there?
That we'll discuss that. So yesterday already I told you. So after creation of the table also we can able to modify the partitions or we can able to create the partitions. That we'll discuss. Don't worry. Okay. Any other questions up to here?
Sorry, the same commands will be used through a Cloud Shell, sir, or SDK? No,
if you want to do the same operations from the Cloud Shell, so this is not a command. We need to use the different command. That also we are going to cover.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yep. For which one? Just 1 second, Andy. Offline people are facing some issue. We check offline after the class, please. Okay. Now my requirement is I want to create partitions by using create command. So if you see here in the above example, have we used the create command? Directly we are performing the loading operation. While performing the loading operation, table is created automatically. At the same time, table created automatically. At the same time, it is taking the partition. At the same time, it is taking the cluster, because here we are using the option called as a load data. But as we discussed earlier, whenever you want to create the table, what is the one more option we are having? By using the create command also we can able to create the tables, and from the console we can able to pass the create command. By using the create command we can able to create the table. But if you want to create the table, first what we need to understand? We need to understand schema. What is the meaning of schema here? You need to understand what all are the column names we need to pass, and we need to understand data type of each and every column, because you are creating the table manually. If you are creating the table manually, you need to understand what all are the column names we need to pass, what all are the data types we need to pass for each and every column. Then only you can able to create the table by using the create command. But in the above example, what is the advantage? Here we are not given the schema. Your BigQuery is taking the schema automatically. With that, it is creating the table. But sometimes in the real time, what will happen? We need to create the table by using the create commands also. But if you want to create the table, we need to understand column name. We need to understand data type of each and every column. With that only we can able to create the table. Now you tell me, what is the query we can able to write to create the table? Syntax: create table, database name dot table name. After that, we need to provide the
column names and data type.
We need to give column 1 data type, and we need to give column 2 data type. So like this, we need to pass all the column data types, and after that, while creation of the table, what is my one more requirement? I want to create the schema. At the same time, I want to create the partition, and I also want to create the cluster.
Yeah.
If you want to create the partition, just we are going to add it as a partition by, we need to give the column name. And if you want to create the cluster, we need to give it as a cluster by, we need to provide the column name. So like that, simply we can able to create the table structure, and while creation of the table structure, we can able to provide the partition by, and also we can able to provide the cluster by. Now here, so whatever the file I shared already, for that file, this is the kind of the schema. So we are going to give the schema like this. So for each and every column, we are giving employee ID integer, first name string, last name string, phone number string. So like that, we are giving all the column information. Other than that, we are going to apply the partition by on top of the required column. We are applying the cluster by on top of the required column. Again, why we are giving this?
Where clause?
Because to enable the where clause on top of your select statement by using the partition column, we are giving this option, and this is the way simply we can able to create the table. So see here, now you tell me what is the difference between this fourth one and sixth one, this one and this one. In the fourth one, what we are doing? Have we created the table?
We are loading the data.
Directly we are creating the table by using the command called as a load command, which is nothing but here it is going to create the table structure and data load. Both the operations are happening at a time only. But coming to here,
here we are creating the table.
only structure we are creating. Okay, please try to understand all these statements, whatever we are discussing. I'm repeating the same thing. Whatever we are doing, same thing we are going to perform in the afternoon session. And that's the reason I am spending this much of time. I'm giving this much of gap for each and every example. Try to understand. I don't want to confuse you, but I want to explain in the real time in how many ways we can able to create the table. To understand that, we are discussing all these things. And first one, directly by using the console, you can able to create the table. Second one, by using the load data option also, you can able to create the table. Third one, by using the create command also, we can able to create the table. Now we are using the third option. Now here I'm given the table name is, for example, employee P create. What it means indirectly? Employee table partitioned, but we are creating this table by using the create command. Just for my understanding, I'm giving like this only. Now, just I will ping this also in the group. If you want, you also can able to create the table in parallel.
Hello. Hello.
Okay. So now see here, I'm going to run this query.
Not audible.
Okay, just I copy paste the query, and after that we need to click on the run button.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Here we are giving options that filter.
Yes.
Can you go to require partition? If we are not mentioning that option, is it take any default value?
Yeah, it will take the default value. It will take the default value as a true only.
True only. No need to give that option then.
Yeah,
right?
no need to give that option. But if you want to, just I want to let you know, whenever we are applying the partition in the real time, compulsory we have to apply the filter. For that reason, every time I'm giving this option. If you don't want, you can remove this option. Without having this option also, you can able to create the table.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Now see, my table has been created. Now tell me, in this table we are having the only structure, or we are having the data also? In this table, we are having the only structure. We don't have the data. Now my requirement is, into this table, I want to load the data. Now you try to give the answer how we can able to load the data into this table. One option, by using the insert command. But if I'm having the 1 lakh records in my file, by using the insert option, can I able to load the data? Obviously no, right? Then what we can do? Just know what we discussed. By using this load command, you can create the table, you can load the data. Now my requirement is, I want to load only the data. And so in that situation also, we can able to use the same command. Just what I'm doing here is, or I will copy from here.
This can be done only for existing tables, right? So we
Yes,
can do
correct.
as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So this will override the data, or like it append the data?
It will override the data, because we are not giving any other option called. So if you want to do the kind of operation, we need to provide the options only. But here we are not giving any kind of options. We are enabling any kind of options. For that reason, it is going to override the data. Now see here, what we can do here, simply we can able to use the same load data command, but as part of using this load data command, are we giving any kind of cluster by or partition by here? In the previous example, we are given the cluster by and partition by because that table you want to create newly. But here already we are having the table or not? Already we are having the table. In this table, just I want to perform the loading operation. For that reason, we are not given the partition by, we are not given the cluster by. But see here, is there any difference between this query and this query, or this command and this command?
No, except that
Okay,
partition.
remove this partition by and cluster by.
Cluster.
Is there any difference? No, and completely
No.
same. But what is going to happen here is, if this table is not available already, then that table will create automatically. At the same time, data also will load into the table. Now, for example, in our example here, this table is already present. Now you tell me, this table will create one more time, or only data load will happen as part of this execution now?
Only data will
Only
load.
data load only will happen. And for example, if table is not available, then table will create on top of that data will load. But in this example, table we created by using the create command. For that reason, as part of running this command, what will happen? It is not going to create the table, but what it will do here? It is going to load the data automatically on top of your table. Now indirectly, instead of using the insert command, I am going to use this command. By using this command, we can able to perform the loading operation. The data has been loaded. Okay. Now I want to see in this table whether a partition created or not, and which partition IDs are created. So how I can able to see that information? We applied the partition on top of this table. I loaded the data into this table. Now I want to see all the partition IDs. In every partition ID, I want to see the number of records and what we can do.
We can query.
You can use information
discuss,
as
simply we can
schema
go for
dot
the
partition.
information schema partitions table. Here we need to give the table name is nothing but whatever the table newly created, we need to give that table name and just run this query. Okay, now see here, you can able to see the table name called as a p create, which we created freshly, and after loading the data, you can able to see all the partition date. Now tell me here, what is the partition column? Higher grade column. In the higher grade column, whatever the partition ID values we are having, it is taking all those values and in every partition ID, it can able to see the number of records. This is the way simply we can able to check the partition information. Now I want to see the cluster information also, then where we need to go? I want to see which columns are partitioned, which columns are clustered. I want to see that information. Then what table we need to use?
Columns.
We need to use the information underscore schema dot columns ID. This is the table we can able to use. Here we need to give the new table name. This is my table name. Employee p create. Now just run this query. Okay, here you can able to see all the list of the columns, and again you can able to see on which column we applied the partition, on which column we applied the cluster. All this kind of information you can able to see by using the schema.columns table ID. But if you want to see the partition IDs in every partition, how many records are loaded, if you want to see all this kind of information, we are going to use the table called as a information schema.partitions table. Okay. Now tell me, is there any difference between step 4 and step 5 and 6? Sorry, step 6 and 7. Is there any difference between step 4 and step 6 and 7? In the step 4, what is happening? We are given the same load command, but by using this load command, what is happening? At a time, your table is creating and also data is loading only. But coming to in the 6th and 7th step, what we are doing? We are doing both the operations separately. In the 6th step, I am creating the table. After that, in the 7th step, we are going to perform the loading operation. Now, if you are going to work in the real-time project, which option we are going to use? We are going to use the step 4 or we are going to use the 6 and 7?
Step 4.
Depending on the requirement or file.
Real-time projects, we are going to use step 6 and step 7. Okay, in the real time, most of the projects, we are going to use the step 6 and step 7, which is nothing but you need to create the table manually. You need to load the data by using this command. Both the operations we are not going to perform at a time as part of our real-time projects only. You need to create the table. After that, we need to run the load command. With that, we need to load the data. In the real time, most of the projects, we are going to use the step 6 and step 7. In the combination of these two only, we are going to perform the loading operations as part of our real-time projects. Okay. Now, so far, all these operations where we are doing, from the console. Okay. Now tell me, in the real time, if you are going to work in the real time projects, are we going to get the option for the console? In some projects, you are going to get the option for console. In most of the projects, you need to perform all these operations from where?
SDK or shell.
From the Cloud SDK or from the G shell or Google shell. We need to perform all these operations, and indirectly again we need to understand all this information, how we can able to perform from the Cloud shell or from Cloud SDK or G shell. So this information we'll discuss in our 11:45 class. In 11:45 class, I will show you from the Cloud SDK how we can able to perform all these steps, and with that what will happen, you can able to recollect all the topics whatever we discussed earlier. Tell me here, this create table command already we discussed or not? Already we discussed. And load command already we discussed, and partition by, cluster by yesterday only we discussed, and for that reason for every table we are given the partition by and cluster by. By using this class, indirectly you can able to recollect what we discussed as part of the previous classes, how to create the table from the console, how to create by using the commands, how to create. At the same time, in the 11:45 class, I am going to recollect how we can able to perform the same operations by using the Cloud SDK. With that, what will happen? You will be ready for our 2:30 class, because in the 2:30 class we are going to see the end-to-end example. When we are going to see the end-to-end example, are we using any different options or we are going to use the same options, Andy? Whatever the options we are discussing so far, we are going to use the same options, but we are going to perform the end-to-end operation by using one real-time example. With that, you can get a clear picture. That's the reason, just for recapping and for repetition, I covered all these topics again in the today's session. In the 11:45 also, we are going to cover the same topics, but by using the Cloud SDK. With that, in the 2:30 class, you can able to understand all the topics in the very, very easy way. Is it clear? Okay. Any questions?
Sir,
yeah, please.
We are seeing the partitions by using information schema, right?
Yes.
But we are seeing both the partitions and clustering by using the clustering columns.
Yeah.
So we can use for better we can use these only.
No, see here, if you see the partitions table, tell me, in the partitions table and columns table, are we seeing the same data or different data? Other people try to give the answer. Someone is asking the question. In the partitions table, we are seeing the partitions. In the columns table also, we are seeing the partition information. Then which is the better one? Someone is asking. Tell me first question. Both the tables are displaying the same data or completely different data?
Completely different data.
In the partitions table, it is displaying the partition IDs information. Internally in the classes, whatever the partition IDs are, it is creating. It is creating that information. In every partition, how many rows are storing, that information also we can able to see by using the partitions table. But by using the columns table, can we be able to see all this kind of information?
No.
You can able to see only on which column you update the partition, on which column you update the only cluster, only that information only you can able to see. And indirectly, if you want to understand on which columns you update the partition and which columns you update the cluster, then you can go for dot columns table. If you want to understand what all are the partition IDs it created, in every partition how many records are stored, if you want to see that kind of information, then we are going to use the table called as a partition table. Indirectly, by depending on your requirement, either you need to go for columns table or we need to go for the partitions table. Is it clear?
Okay, then can't we see the columns information like partitions? Clustering informations like partitions.
Now tell me here in the clustering, what is happening? It is storing the data or it is sorting the data?
Sorting.
Clustering is a physical block or it's a kind of a virtual information? It's a kind of a virtual information. For that reason, you cannot be able to see the clustering information in the data set only, because internally your data is sorting. If internally data is sorting, how we can able to see the data in the outside? We cannot able to see the data. But coming to partition, your data is storing physically into the each and every partition. That's the reason that information we can able to see, but clustering information we cannot able to see outside.
We just see the sorting order, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So what I will do here is I will share all these comments to you, and so next 1.5 hours try to perform the practice on all these things. With that, in the 11:45 class, we'll discuss about how we can able to perform the same operations by using our Cloud SDK or by using our Google Shell. Okay. Okay then, thank you.